I'm Ina, and this is Know Thyself. So, a month has gone by and I haven't made a video. I did say I was going to make this video, this tag. My life's been really busy. I've had 2 trips. I went to Manchester and then I had my boyfriend visit for a week. So I've been busy. My mental health, well, I think I should dedicate a separate video to that. There has been such an evolution in the past month and a half or so. There's been such a transformation, I'd say. My mental health has done a complete 180 in the best way possible. So I feel like I have to definitely dedicate a video to that. How I went about that, my story, because I feel like it's a testament to, the fact that magic is real. And I feel like a lot of us in this community can agree on that, to varying degrees, however we understand magic. Mental health is real as well, and of course mental health professionals always are the first people to go to, but like I said, I will definitely dedicate a video to that because I think it's very important. It concerns me, and this channel is an extension of me, and also an extension of my mental health journey, so I will dedicate a video to that, but this is not the time or place. Again, me going off, rambling. I'm not currently home. I'm not where I usually live. I'm at my parents' because my dad had to get surgery, so I'm here to support him, and so my setup looks a little bit different, but I quite like it. So what is this? This is a VR to Kelly Bear, and the tag is called 54321. So technically this is a VR to Rachel at Second Thoughts About the Mission because she tagged me, but the original tag is by Kelly Bear. So the whole conceit is, the premise is that you share 5 tarot decks. 5. Please don't notice my nails. They're terrible, I know. I have to get them fixed. But yeah, you show off 5 tarot decks, 4 tarot, or well, maybe just books in general, but I did kind of interpret it as for tarot books specifically. So I will be going with tarot themed books, 3 spreads, 2 habits or paraphernalia related to tarot, and 1 piece of advice. As for tarot decks, I noticed that the people whose VRs I've watched, everyone was sort of going for a different theme relating to the decks portion of the VR. So, some people were showing off decks that they rarely use, or decks that are very special to them, or sentimental, or rare decks, or decks they use for a specific purpose. So I decided the theme I would go with would be decks that follow in my collection. So the 5 decks that follow a seemingly completely different system. So I do have 5 decks that fit that description. I don't think I have any more than that. I do have, of course, decks that bend the interpretations of the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith or the Marseille or the Thoth, whatever system they follow. The illustrations very much go their own way, and the creator of the deck has taken artistic liberties, and such as the Chicoli deck, where of course that particular deck was not originally meant to be a tarot deck. So the collection of images is a curated deck for the purpose of images that already existed and were just kind of like retrofitted to fit a tarot deck, which is the case for a lot of low Scarabeo art decks. But of course, insofar that the images were not meant for tarot or divination, they of course kind of go their own way. So such is the case with the Hush Tarot as well. A lot of the images were not meant for a tarot deck, so they have been retrofitted. And but then there have been decks with intentional use of artistic liberties was definitely taken, and the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith interpretations were not followed to the T. You know, like the artists very much had their own approach and did their own thing. So I am not talking about those kind of decks. Okay, so for me, these decks follow their own system that is very distinct from the predominant systems that would be the Waite-Smith, the Marseille, and the Thoth. So I kind of wanted to explore those decks because they also happen to be some of the most beautiful decks in my collection. And I'm very drawn to historical decks. I'm very drawn to rare decks. Maybe not rare in the sense that they're out of print, but that they just have that quality to them where it seems like not many other people talk about them, not many other people appreciate them. So of course I'm instantly drawn to them because I feel like there's something to uncover there. Right, I'd love to really bring people's attention to hidden gems, both mass market and indie. So that's what I want to do with these decks, because I feel like these decks are hidden gems for sure. So I feel like I'm going to start with maybe technically one of my most prized possessions in my collection, because it is, I am aware it's out of print and quite difficult to find, and it fetches quite high prices on the secondhand market, and I found it for an incredible price. It was the steal of the century. So very proud to own it. It's very beat up, but I'm totally okay with that. The Balbi Tarot. So yeah, Tarot Balbi rather. So how is this different? This is a Spanish deck from the 70s. You can see the box has obviously seen better days. It's been beat up to shit. It's been through the ringer, and the cards have also seen better, seen better glory days. Yeah, the Tarot Balbi, how is this different? Well, I noticed that, at least in the images, it's, okay, so actually that is the main difference, but I want to just show them some of the majors off first. So in terms of the majors, right, they do seem to follow a more Marseille-driven, more Marseille-inspired leaning in terms of like how they are, just some of the poses, the stances. Hang on. You can definitely recognize some of the stances that the characters have are more Marseille-inspired, more historically inspired. But the main difference is that the astrological associations are, for most of the cards, for most of the majors, are completely different. For example, for Death, we have the association of Saturn and Mars. This is not really technically called Death. This is just Arcanum number 13. It's the unnamed card according to Marseille tradition, which I really like. That's very cool. So again, majors are very Marseille influenced, but the astrological association, so it does have esoteric correspondences. They are completely different. I can't really speak for the gematria or the Hebrew letters, really. I'm not really familiar with them, but we do have different associations. So we have Saturn, we have Mars for Death. Now, you can definitely make a case for why Saturn, or even Mars, because Mars rules Scorpio, right? Why those two associations were chosen. But for some of the other astrological associations aren't so straightforward or as intuitive. This one, for example, is pretty much on par with the Waite-Smith. So we have Libra for justice. But then we have the Hermit, for example, who seems to be associated with, I guess, Neptune, maybe? I'm not entirely sure. Some cards, some majors, let me find another major, seem to not have any astrological association at all, and others have just some really bizarre. The Wheel of Fortune is also associated with Saturn, which I think is interesting. I guess you can make a case for, like, the wheel of time, maybe, and Saturn is Kronos, is associated with time. And then we have, you know, cards such as Temperance, which don't seem to have any astrological associations. And then let me try and find a major that really confuses me. Okay, so the Devil is Mars as well. Okay, so this one in particular, Empress. The Empress here is associated with Mercury, and that just boggles my mind. I cannot make a case for it. Like, I really cannot understand it. Let me try and move my light source, because this I do not like what this is doing to my... Okay, that's good enough, I guess. So yeah, I don't really get the Empress being Mercury, to be completely honest. Maybe I haven't really read the little leaflet that comes with it, but I'm not sure it's going to provide much information regardless. I don't know, maybe there is some obscure esoteric knowledge or correspondence that I'm missing here that, you know, that the creator used for this deck. So in that way, yes, this deck is very different from even, you know, you might think at a glance that it's a Marseille inspired deck, but it has esoteric correspondences, which isn't actually in line with the traditional Marseille, pre-esoteric orders and schools of thought. So that differs. Now the main difference is that the minors, so the minors are pips. Now, I don't know if you're noticing something about the minors. So the wands are fire, the coins are earth, but then the swords and the cups are switched elementally. So the swords are water and the cups are air. So there is actually a name for this particular elemental designation. So this is what we would call Picard minors. I really do want to buy his book just to study it and see what he has to say about the meanings. I think Sorsha at Sorsha Soaring, I believe, she slightly touched on Picard minors in one of her videos, and I thought it was really, really, really illuminating and interesting what she had to say about them, or what Picard had to say about the minors specifically. So for some reason the cups are air and the swords are water. So really, really, really beautiful art. So this is air, this is not water. Although you can see a call to the Waite-Smith here with the dove. Yeah, that's so for example, here's an allusion to the swords being associated with water. You'll sometimes see fish. So this does follow its own system. It follows the Picard system, which is not really popular. Didn't really become popular for reasons. This is a really beautiful page of cups. I got this the other day when I was using this deck. But yeah, I guess there's a reason it didn't really catch on. Like, even this card has corn. No, well, not corn, sorry. This card even has wheat in it and fruits, which kind of denotes earth, right? A more earthiness quality to it. So that is, you know... Oh, I love this Two of Coins. But anyway, yeah, I definitely want to study the Picard minors and understand the reasoning behind, yeah, why the elemental switch. It does throw me off, honestly. I don't read with this deck very much. It's more of a collector's piece. It does throw me off because I can't really read around it, right? I can try to ignore that the swords are water, and I can read them as air anyway. Here you can see we have the sign for Scorpio and Cancer. And I guess there's also an allusion to Pisces with these two moons and the, you know, but I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. So I do really, this is a deck that is encouraging me to look into the Picard style pips. I really, really want to look into that and understand. As for the weird astrological associations in the majors. I can't really, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, moving swiftly on because, yeah, I tend to ramble. So the next deck I wanted to talk about was the William Blake. So this for me is more of an, I don't know, this is more of an oracle. I read this as more of an oracle. I was inspired to get this because of, I saw it on Janiki's channel, Catamancy. She's inspired me to get so many decks. But yeah, I do love this deck, but it has one major flaw, and going through it, it's not just, well, you know, the images obviously don't really particularly follow right away or Marseille or Thoth influence. But it's not just that, because obviously this is the artwork of William Blake, and it's been retrofitted, or it's been fitted to kind of fit into the constraints of the tarot. And, you know, of course, most of the majors actually have been renamed, so that is obviously different. But there's another really glaring difference. Besides kind of all the religious iconography, very Christian, kind of like Gnostic, I believe William Blake was a Gnostic? Don't quote me on that, but yeah, for example, the Empress being nature, you know, the renaming kind of makes sense. Like, there's reasoning for it, there's logic. I really love this. Angels stand around my spirits. Angels stand around my spirit. The angel of poetry. It has some really good quotes, so I do read it sometimes as an oracle rather as more than a tarot. So all the minor suits have been renamed as well to music, poetry, painting, and science. So I believe the only suit that for me like actually corresponds with its element is the science suit, which is of course air. But then the other, okay, so here's the problem that I noticed looking through this deck. So, but you can probably guess that by the borders, you could probably intuit what the elements are, so what suit it is. So the poetry suit is supposedly earth, right? Because you see these like grapevines. Okay, so you can intuit like, okay, plant life, vines, earth, whatever, fruit of the earth. Okay, fair enough. So the court cards really aren't the problem for me. So we have Man of Science, which would be the king of swords, and painting. So according to this deck, so you can see the borders here. This is supposedly, painting is supposedly the water suit. And let me find, I like this, the devil's called Error. What are the others? Let me see if I can find the other suits. Okay, so music is supposedly fire, so wands. I'm going to put this aside just because I need to illustrate something. And I love this. It's just, the art is breathtaking. It really is. Okay, and the last suit would be, so okay, I think we've gone over earth, water, fire, and okay, yeah, we've gone over all of them. So here's the thing, I've noticed that the keywords for these cards, I went through all the suits, and they correspond with the same card, but in a different suit. And it's so consistent that I've realized that it's like the earth suit is actually like poetry, for instance, is supposed to be earth, but I've realized that all the keywords line up with the keywords that you would, for example, find on the Thoth for the fire suit. And it's really consistent, so you actually get that throughout all the suits. So strife, for example, would make sense for the Five of Wands, but for the Five of Earth, not so much. Musing, for example, the Four of Music, so it's supposedly fire. Does that make sense for the Four of Wands? It definitely aligns with the Four of Cups, more so. So discipline for the Eight of Painting aligns more with the Eight of Earth, or Eight of Coins, Discs, Pentacles, whatever you want to call them, more than the Eight of Cups, really. Although you do get the image of, you know, an image reminiscent of like the Waite-Smith kind of like Eight of Cups. Practice, Three of Painting. That doesn't really align with the Three of Water in my humble opinion. Yeah, like I said, it's not just like 1 or 2 cards, it's consistent. So I've actually done something where in my mind I just completely ignore the borders, and for me I've now associated painting with earth, I've associated music with water, I believe, so cups, poetry with fire, so wands, and then of course science is pretty self-explanatory. Didn't need to change that one. That's the only one that kind of makes sense. So it's a bit of a it's a bit of a struggle to read with this deck, because I need to like kind of ignore the associations, even in the guidebook, right? The associations that were attributed to, I don't know, the elements that were attributed to each suit. I kind of have to work around both the guidebook and the cards. So yeah, this is a deck that I really like to look at. I like it as a kind of more as a tarot oracle, more than a traditional tarot. Yeah, it just, yeah. So it's different. She's different. I will give the guidebook more of a chance, and I will try to understand the logic. It's a deck that I have to just kind of be, it's a very cerebral deck, actually. It's very cerebral. But yeah, I kind of have to work around it. So it's a bit of a, it's one that really does kind of make me work for the reading, like work for like the meaning of I don't know, I have to work around it. And it does its own thing, right? It completely does its own thing, clearly, and yeah. But I love it. That doesn't make me love it any less. So that was the William Blake Tarot. I'll try and be really quick with the other sections, but I think this is the section that people are interested in the most, so maybe I'll take my time with this section. The other deck that kind of follows its own system, it does reference the Rider-Waite-Smith in the guidebook, but it's definitely its own thing. So this is one of my most prized, very much like the Tarot Balby, this is one of possibly my most prized mass market deck in my possession, Splendor Solace Tarot. Okay, I'm going to make a series about this deck, okay, because it needs its own series. It's so lush, it's beautiful. The cards have actual like gilding on, so it has gilding, some gilding. So you have the rose petal finish, which might annoy some, is kind of, some people hate. Very, very, very rose petal finish, very like rose petal suede, I don't know how to describe it, but you have like actual gold details in each card, and the card's very thick. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about the deck's like, you know, what the deck is like. I'm here to talk about the system. So this is the guidebook is quite a trip. Again, I'll make a series on this deck. It's very let me see if I can find some of the, somewhere around here. Okay, maybe near the beginning. Yeah. Oh, you know, okay, so this does basically this does follow the Tree of Life, the Kabbalah. Though it is interesting because it incorporates a lot. It is an alchemical deck, incorporates alchemical principles, but it works with the Kabbalah, so it's a completely Kabbalah based deck. So, you know, like the descriptions are, you know, go into like alchemical, I don't know, just stuff that I honestly it kind of goes way over my head, and I kind of get the gist of it, but then, I mean, like a lot of the mages are just, you know, alchemy of strength and rebus, they're just completely different. One of the changes that I think, Emperor with Mountain kind of makes sense, but I think one of the major changes that annoys me the most is probably the High Priestess. The High Priestess is renamed and associated with the Fountain Knight, which really bothers me because the High Priestess for me is obviously, well, I mean, it just, High Priestess card I think is meaningful for a lot of people, and it is for me. It's my birth card, so it just kind of annoys me that that one card is like does not look like what I wish it looked like, and does not have the associations that I would normally you'd normally bring to the table, the High Priestess would normally bring to the table. Anyway, this is a completely alchemical deck. So mages, yeah, completely, you do have the original title here, so Alchemy of the Hierophant. It's been renamed to the Great Tree. Of course, the Magician is the alchemist, that makes sense. So it's the miners, right? Here's where we get into the Kabbalistic. So the miners actually, most of the different artwork, so this isn't a deck that is very rich in artwork. It does obviously look very rich, right? So like all the 8s have the same setup, basically. It's only really in the Major Arcana where you see differences in the artwork, like key, like actual distinct artwork, right? So it's not really the artwork that you're supposed to divine from with this deck. It's the Kabbalistic association. So, for example, all the 9s are associated with, if you know anything about the Kabbalah, so it does highlight where on the Tree of Life you are. So all the 9s are situated here on the Tree of Life in Yesod, which is associated with the moon. So all the 9s are the moon, they're called the moon of, and then the suit, right? So in this case, Golden Earth is the pentacle suit. So you are given a map of the Tree of Life, and it's indicated where you are, but beyond that, you're not actually really supposed to pay attention to like the images, because they don't really actually have much relevance. I found sometimes you can intuit something from them, but not most of the time. So for example, Son of Living Fire, so this is the 6, so we are here on the Tree of Life. This is the 6th Sephirot, which is Tiferet, and that is associated with the sun. So Son of Living Fire, which is the Fire 1 suit, 6. And of course, just to make it easy, it is stated here exactly what card it is. So Alchemy of the 6 of Wands. All the cards are like this. So Mars of Starry Water would be the 5 of Cups. Mars is here, Geberah. And I love this deck. I don't, this system doesn't bother me at all. Again, it's a deck you really, really have to work for it. Obviously, you have to have some basic knowledge of Kabbalah and Kabbalah, maybe of alchemy as well. What else? If that's not really your bag, then that this deck definitely won't interest you. Those things do call to me. The Kabbalah and alchemy are, I am studying the Kabbalah. Don't know much about alchemy yet, but it is something I want to explore. So yeah, the triple dragon for temperance. I'm sure there's an alchemical reason for that, right? But I don't know it. So this is a study deck for me, very much its own thing. It doesn't claim to be otherwise, but in the book there are explanations. It does very clearly say what the card is, but even so, there's not much you can get from the image. So it is something that you have to go very much off your memory, your knowledge of the tarot. But I think it is worth exploring different meanings for the tarot by tying it to the Kabbalah and its Kabbalistic associations, and also its maybe alchemical associations. So I think this is, not only is it just a beautiful deck, I think it's going to be a good deep dive for me. I'm definitely going to make a series on this, and it's probably my most prized deck because it's just so beautiful, and it's just, I don't know, it's really, really unique. So, and these are the backs. This is actually based on a manuscript, on a medieval manuscript, called the Splendor Solis, if you've heard of it, which was alchemical in nature, I believe. So, yeah. Anyway, so that leads us to our last two decks, and I will be showing them together, and although they are technically the same system, they are a little bit different. So these are currently the two Atea decks that are on the market, mass market. So we have Grimoire's Grand Atea, ou Tarot Egyptian, and then we have the Book of Thoth, which has nothing to do with the Thoth, but it's so called that by Atea. This one is solely in French, so the meanings, so you actually get the meanings of the cards on the cards, upright and reversed. So let me go into this one first. But this one is entirely in French. Now, I kind of got these for, well, collection's sake, because I like historical decks, I like exploring different tarot systems, and I just really love I just love the look of these cards so much. I can't, even if it isn't a system that I particularly work with or that I understand, because it kind of goes its own way. And also it's very like spread dependent from what I've gathered. So it's very, very, very like mathematical. If you look at the guidebook, it's like, oh, this card means this, but if it's paired with this specific card, then it means this specifically. Which is very like, ooh, you know, like, I don't know if I have the brain, if I have the space, I don't know if I have the brain, I don't know if I have a brain to remember all of that. So it does have upright and reverse meaning. So this one is entirely in French, but I just love it so much. And I'm really interested in trying to learn the system as best as I can, even if I'm not ever proficient in it. I still kind of want to just study it. This is one of, you know, the Atea system predates the Waite-Smith and the Thoth. So it is an interesting look into tarot history. So the majors are completely different, even from the Marseille. They've been completely rearranged. So for card number 13, we have what you might consider to be the Lovers. Here it's called Marriage or Union. Let's see if I can find another major. So, okay, so the Fool is Foley. It's actually the very last card in the deck. It's number 78. There's some very strange deviations. So we have 7, which would be the Chariot, is called Appui, which means support, I'm pretty sure, or protection. It depends on, and it's, so apparently the Major Arcana is supposed to represent, it's supposed to represent the creation of the universe. So like in order. So like the first card I believe is Chaos or something like it. We have the Devil or something that looks like the Devil. I love this Devil card so much. I just, it's such a, like, you know, the off-white, the beige cream borders, the art. I love it so much. It's so folky to me. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. The major, the Devil is at number 14. The Hermit has a rather negative connotation in this deck. He's called the Traitor. So the Hermit actually has a very negative connotation, and he is number 18. And this would be what we call the Chariot. If you're French, you'll know what that means. Arrogance, it's number 21. So it's actually the last card in the Major Arcana. Tower is Misery or Prison, and it's number 19. Okay. Oh, here's the first card. So this is the card I was talking about. Chaos. This represents there was a lot of this in old cartomancy, where you would have a significator, and you do still get that in tarot, but the significator card was often a separate, so in these systems like Atea, there was often a separate card to represent the querent. This is supposed to be the masculine querent, and then there's a card for the feminine querent. So, but then it also represents chaos. So this is like primordial chaos, the beginning, the inception of the universe, and then it just kind of really beautiful. Let me see if I can find the sun card, which, oh, okay, so here's la nuit, which is the night. So la nuit, the night, and then le jour, the day. So as you see the creation of the zodiac here. So again, Atea is not a system I'm very familiar with, and it seems very overly complicated. But some of the meanings are the same. If you compare, some of the meanings seem to be the same with like the Wade Smith and the Marseille, but it's, yeah, it does its own thing. And yeah, even the minor suits, I mean, even the minor cards are numbered. So the Page of Swords is 53, and this one does have English translation. So we have spy in French, and then improvidence. So for example, yeah, there is similarities in some cards. I have the Six of Cups here, the past. Well, yeah, that more or less aligns with the Wade Smith. And then if you turn it over, we have the future. Now, you'll notice that the cards have this. So these are actually some of the original Atea illustrations. There's a whole thing on that. I will definitely make a video on the Atea system. You'll notice that some cards have like this. The minor cards will have this, and in some of the minor cards you'll have like a picture here as well, and I'll try and show you an example. So this is tenacity, which represents the female consultant or querent, kind of like an Eve-like figure. Prudence, we have prudence instead of the Hanged Man, which, you know, there's a whole thing about prudence and the Hanged Man, or the Hanged Man possibly being prudence in historical decks, so that actually does check out. But some of these cards have very, okay, yeah, so here for example with the Pentacles, we do actually have like astrological angles, right? Like, you know, like you know how you have like sextiles and oppositions and stuff like that, so you'll have for some reason you'll have that in the Pentacles. Yeah, so this kind of seems like it might be the sun or the star, and it's number 2. So, and then in the wands you have, I don't know, I don't, but this is a beautiful moon card. Strength is at 11, so okay, so we do at least. The Ace of Pentacles for some reason represents is no, not Hermes, Apollo. I guess, you know, you kind of see the sun. Maybe you can make a case for that. Judgment as opinion, I don't know. Let me see if I can find more. So yeah, so we have like more astrological. Again, I don't really get it. But this I do know is like the symbol for the South Node. Beautiful Queen of Cups, woman above reproach. So unlike the Wade Smith, well, actually, no, not unlike the Wade Smith, but I feel like this, in this case, in this system, it's very apparent. Some of these court cards have very negative connotations. Some of the major arcana as well. So like the Hermit has very negative connotations, no matter what way you look at it, it has very negative connotations. Yeah, so for example, this is a really interesting card for me. So we do actually have Hermes here, and then the Two of Pentacles, suggesting the element of fire, but I do believe the Pentacles are associated with Earth, although I'm not entirely sure in this system. So Death at 17. So yeah, there are a few similarities, but there are more differences than similarities. Gone on long enough about the tarot decks, but again, I guess this is like the section that people are interested in the most. Yeah, I don't know. Those are the tarot decks. The tarot system is definitely one I want to study. Maybe not as in depth as, like, you know, my studies with just, just continuing to study the Waite-Smith and the Thoth and the Marseille. But it's definitely a system that for historical purposes, like for just understanding the history of tarot, I want to learn, just like the Picard system. So talking about learning, let's move on to the books. So I don't actually have many tarot books, and this is because I don't have many physical books because I have a Scribd account, so I actually, not sponsored, I actually read a lot of books on Scribd. So a lot of my tarot books have some of the classics, like 78 Degrees, is it 78 Degrees of Wisdom? All kind of the classics saved on my Scribd account. So I have very few tarot books in like actual physical form. So I gathered up what I do have, and I believe these are very reflective or indicative of my interests, of my specific interests in tarot, right? So let's start with, okay, I want to give it, I'm going to pop a picture up here on the screen. I'm going to give like a special mention to a book I don't have in physical form, but that I feel is really interesting and has more to do with cartomancy than tarot. So I'm not really properly including it, but it's like a runner-up. I believe it's called Cartomancy in Witchcraft, or in Folk Witchcraft rather, by Roger J. Horne. I really want to give a special shout out to that because it actually puts the mancy in cartomancy. Like there's actual rituals, like folk rituals that you can do using the cards. It kind of gives you an introductory look at reading with playing cards and Marseille pips. Has a very kind of like do-it-yourself kind of approach, like find your own meanings. There is no really right or wrong answer because it is, of course, cartomancy is more of an oral tradition. So, kind of take it or leave it. So speaking of like more of a cartomantic approach and more of a folk approach, I want to mention this book first. So this is The Marseille Tarot, Towards the Art of Reading by Camelia Elias. This book, I really recommend this book if you're into the Marseille. It will make you, okay, there's some stuff here. I'm just gonna like put this as a warning. Content, not really content warning. She's very sharp. She's very to the point. She does not mince words. I love that about her. Yeah, she has a very traditional folk approach to reading Marseille, and she does explain the logic behind it. But there are some discrepancies with elemental associations, for example, and that might bother you if you're very strong on like that. Like she does associate the pentacles with fire, for example, and that did kind of throw me off a lot. But the technique, the methods still hold. And I really do want to make a book on her book. I'd love to make a book. I want to make a video on comparing and contrasting reading methods with like Marseille and Waite-Smith, because I feel like I read Marseille and Waite-Smith and even Thoth in very different ways. But I'd like to find a compromise between the three systems. Something that I can apply to all three systems, which might be a little bit difficult. But this book has encouraged me to kind of like, to really just to read the damn cards, okay? This really has a very practical approach. So if you're more of a spiritual kind of philosophical, that's kind of more your thing, this might not be the book for you. This has a very like very grounded, feet on firmly planted on the ground, practical approach to reading the tarot. The main premise of this book being just answer the damn question. Like, you have to answer the question that is being asked of you. Yeah, that's not really your thing, then, this is really good for learning how to answer questions such as like, my husband left me for another woman and I don't know what to do. What do I do? What will happen? Like kind of like almost dealing with the profane, not so much the spiritual. Although you can answer spiritual questions using these techniques, but it's more to do with like the mundane, day-to-day, you know, what cartomancy traditionally has been about, right? The art of cartomancy before tarot kind of came along as we know it. Cartomancy was its own thing, and it very much was very practical and used to answer certain kinds of questions that were, for the most part, not spiritual questions. They were, you know, people had concerns, mundane concerns, and this kind of helps you tap into that. So this book, this writer did influence the next writer, and he is very well loved on TarotTube. I love his channel. I really recommend him. If you haven't checked him out yet, I really highly recommend you do. Tarot on Earth by Tom Benjamin. So he really loves Camellia Elias's approach. And this is another book that is a hands-on guide. It's a course. So you actually there's actually like exercises, activities for you to do, like very hands-on, just a very hands-on approach to learning the tarot. It doesn't spoon feed you. It very much encourages you to find your own answers, do your own research, and his approach is also very practical. If you've watched any of his videos, you'll know that, any of Tom Benjamin's videos, you'll know his approach is very much also like, you know, just answer the question. Like, answer the question that is being asked of you. Don't kind of like beat around the bush. Sometimes people have very silly questions, what may seem silly to us or mundane, or very, you know, of this realm and not very enlightened or spiritually evolved. But we as tarot readers have most of us as tarot readers, if we take on clients, we have a kind of an obligation, or we owe it to our clients to be efficient, I believe. So yeah, these two books have really changed my approach to tarot, because when I was learning it for the first few years, my approach was very much the approach that a lot of people take, which there's nothing wrong with it. It's very introspective and reflective and psychological and so on and so forth. But sometimes when you really get a question, like a really, really, really specific question, and you're like, how can the tarot answer that? Well, the tarot can answer those questions. You just have to know where to look. I think that is a really valuable skill to have in your toolbox, as Tom Benjamin says, as a tarot reader. You know, you don't always have to use it, but when clients do come to you with very specific questions, you'll know how to answer them. And those two books I would really recommend for that. We're taking a more kind of like folksy kind of like card reading approach, learning how to read mundane questions, not so spiritual approach, not so esoteric, very much grounded in reality kind of approach. I love that. Now, as for tarot history, you can never have enough tarot history books, and I want all of them. But I feel like a beginner's book or beginner's guide to tarot history, I think a good digestible source would be Robert M. Place's Tarot History, Symbolism, and Divination. Oh my god, is this just like a fantastic book? Like really, for history, the history of tarot as we know it, you know, it's pretty thorough. It's pretty thorough. It obviously isn't going to be like the most extensive review of tarot history ever, but I'd say for a book that is like a good beginner's intro to tarot history, like a good overview of tarot history, I'd say it's pretty substantial, it's pretty thick, it's pretty thorough, it has cites a lot of sources, so you can then go and find those historical sources for yourself, and lots of nice really cool juicy correspondence tables and historical reproductions of historical imagery. Yeah, this is really, 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 really great book for tarot history. I think as like a starter book. I think you don't even need to go beyond this book if you don't want to, but this is like the book to go to for tarot history if you want like an overview and you want it to be like a very thorough overview of tarot history. I recommend Robert M. Place's The Tarot. And then the final book, so here I was talking about being like, you know, not being esoteric and having your feet on the ground, being very practical. And this book is the complete opposite of that. So this is a textbook and I love it. I just love it. It's the Kabbalistic Tarot, a textbook of mystical philosophy by Robert Wang. So this is a textbook. This is a reference book. This is not a book you're just gonna like sit through and read in one go. I've got all sorts of correspondences for both the minor and the major arcana, such as colors, even related sounds, you know, the Hebrew letters, other symbols. Of course, it goes into the Kabbalah or Kabbalah. Yeah, it's very, it's very heady. I will say that. It's very heady, but it's a reference book. So if you're kind of more into that side of like esoteric philosophy and, you know, understanding like just Kabbalah and tarot, how it relates to tarot, this is the perfect book for you. Like I said, it's a reference book, so don't be intimidated by its size because it's quite the chonka. It's very thick and heavy, and it's not a light read. It's just more reference material. But for me, it's very useful, and especially if you're doing the deacon walk, this is very, very useful. So yeah, those are my four book recommendations. Okay, so I'm actually going to get, for the spread, I'm actually going to get another deck because I don't think any of the decks I have on hand are appropriate to demonstrate spreads. So I'm actually going to zoom out and I'm going to get another deck to demonstrate. So give me a second. So spreads. I don't actually have most of my tarot decks with me, so I'm very limited in terms of what I can show. So I picked the Halloween tarot in a tin because I think it's kind of like small enough for me to kind of present a spread. So, you know, forgive me for it being out of season, although it's never out of season. Halloween is never out of season for me. But yeah, just to demonstrate. Spreads. Okay, so we have like just the... okay, like a lot of people say this, but I'm not really much of a spread person, and sometimes that's to my detriment, but I'm kind of very loosey-goosey and very intuitive with how I read cards, so I can't say I'm big on spreads, even though for journaling purposes, I do pick spreads, but like I said, I'm just not big on spreads. But there are a few spreads that I like to go to sometimes. So there's the like just, okay, 3-card spread, right? That's classic. We have, so yeah, just the basic 3-card spread with a twist, I guess. So what I'll do is, instead of like past, present, future, which is also, you know, a pretty valid approach, I'll try and like, there was one I did and I believe I put it in my journal. I don't remember what it was called now, but it was really good for shadow work. And it was something like, it was like the 3 R's: reflect, review, reflect, and resolve, or something like that. So that was a really good like reinterpretation of the 3-card spread. Really good if you want to do shadow work. So just like I said, 3-card spread, pretty basic. I think everyone does this. Everyone can go to this. It's beginner friendly. You can pretty much assign any like meaning to each of the cards. You can also read this as a sequence, like a story. So I think the 3-card spread is one I go to. Now, there's also kind of like variations on the second spread I want, depending on how I'm feeling, depending on the day, or depending on like what's I don't know, you know, my needs. It's kind of like an elemental based spread. So like I said, there's variations of it. So the most basic form of it is just 4 cards, and that would be 4 cards to represent each of the 4 elements. So, you know, like we have fire, water, water, air, the velvet sticks, it's really annoying, earth. Okay, so I would interpret these as like, okay, so we're just gonna have to deal with the glare. So, right, each aspect or like each element represents an area of my life. So, you know, how's the fire doing? You know, like the fire would be the more spiritual aspect of my life. Also work. How's my general drive, my energy, you know, everything that is associated with fire. So how's that doing? How are my emotions, my feelings, my relationships doing? How is like how are my thoughts, my, you know, my plans, my learning, my intellect, how's that doing for air? And then pentacles is all the material, so maybe more so how's like my career doing, you know, my career prospects or my financial situation, etc. Health, home, okay? So, you know, it's interesting to note when there's like a major arcana, right? In one specific element, so that's probably the element that's probably the area of your life that you want to focus on in the reading. And then it's also interesting to note when there's like a different element in a certain like elemental position. So if there's like if there's like air in the fire position, that's also interesting to note. So that's something to like analyze. And then I'll do like, sometimes if I'm feeling a little bit fancy, I'll do maybe like past and future. So I'll do like, what energy am I moving away from and what energy am I moving into? So moving away from the Knight of Cups into the Queen of Pentacles. Nice. So that gives it like a little bit more nuance. And if I kind of want to look into like I don't have enough space, but if I wanted to look into like the conscious and unconscious, then I would maybe put a card like here on top and then one on bottom. And yeah, so that's another spread that I sometimes use. I think it's pretty straightforward. If you know the elemental, if you know what each element represents, then you can, yeah, I think it's pretty intuitive. The third and final spread that I use quite a lot, I think Tom Benjamin uses it quite a lot, and it's very like it's very like inspired by Lenormand style readings, and I guess also maybe more classic like Marseille type readings. Is the tableau, is the 9-card spread. So you start with like the center card, the central card here, then you go center, the heart of the matter, and then you go here. Oh, the King of Pentacles. Okay, anyway, I'll make a video about that. And then you go bam, bam, bam. Okay, maybe my deck is upside down, I don't know. Bam, bam. Don't know if it's gonna fit in frame, but I will, okay, kind of. Bam, bam. So the tableau, the way you read it is kind of like a 3-card spread, but extended. So you read the rows. Okay, you read each row, you interpret each row. You interpret each column then. And then you can do sort of like mirroring, which is like looking, for example, at the King of Pumpkins or the King of Pentacles, relating that to the 10 of Imps, the 10 of Wands. So the way they mirror each other, the relation they have with each other. Because of the glare, I don't think you can really see it very well, but anyway. So you can do mirroring here. You can like read diagonals, right? So what does this say? It gives you a lot of room for interpretations, a lot of room to play. So a lot of detail, a lot of detail. It really like gives you like, it's like a third degree. It really gives you the third degree on any situation, because, you know, you're analyzing every single, like every possible combination of cards, as many as you want or as little as you want. You can just read the rows and the columns, or you can do like any kind of combination of, you can also kind of look at if there's any major arcana, how many court cards there are, how many of each suit as well. That's really important. And you can also do something which is done in Lenormand, which is called knighting. So that's when you look at the relationship between, say, the Nine of Bats is, if you know chess, the knight moves in an L. So you would move in an L to the next card. So the Nine of Bats knights with the Four of Ghosts. So how do those cards relate to each other? Or the King of Pumpkins knights, wait, hang on, no. The King of Pumpkins knights with the Queen of Bats. The King of Pumpkins, the King of Pumpkins also knights with the Knight of Bats. And the Ten of Imps knights with the Eight of Bats and the Queen of Bats. So you have so many possibilities. It's like, oh, it's a world of possibilities. It's kind of very straightforward. It looks very straightforward, but it's actually quite complex. It's quite intricate. It allows for a lot of detail. So yeah, that's, I guess, yeah. And there's also, I kind of want to give like a special shout out to a spread I learned recently from, because I just finished reading reading the Marseille by Camelia Elias, The Council of 13. I believe Tom Benjamin has a video on the Council of 13, so you might want to check that out. It's obviously a much bigger spread and it has even more possibilities, even more combinations. So I find that one really interesting for when I want to like get the, you know, like full, really, really, really understand like just everything about a given situation, like analyze it. It's really, really analytical. Like it's very heady, right? Okay, this video is gonna be way too long. I hope you don't mind that. So paraphernalia, I don't really have like, so habits or paraphernalia. Okay, I don't know if I really have any habits. I'm very, like I said, I'm very loosey-goosey with my tarot practice. I guess like maybe I'll go for I'll touch on paraphernalia instead. So I guess incense, you know, incenses. I should probably replace that. Okay, I'll go and replace that in a second. Incense is something I always like to have during a tarot reading, not during every tarot reading, but you know, if I can, I'll light a candle, I'll light some incense just to set a mood, to indicate that I'm entering a different kind of space, more of like a mental trigger. Yeah, so that is just something that's pretty straightforward. And then I have another piece of paraphernalia, which I'm gonna just go and grab right now. Okay, so my other piece of tarot paraphernalia is my tarot journal. So the reason I don't put this under habit is because, yeah, so let me flip to, hang on, the title page that I made. So this actually says Tarot Journal 2021 to 2022. We are obviously in 2023, and this is how much I've actually, can you see how many pages I still have yet to fill? I'm not very consistent with my tarot journaling, and I really should be, because I think in 2024, I want to have a consistent tarot journaling practice. And hopefully that means I'll actually finish and fill this book. But it is something I do occasionally, and I think the reason I'm not very consistent with it is because I'm very, you know, I'm a perfectionist. Even when it comes to just like writing shit down, I like to make it artsy. I like to make it pretty, and I can really get in my own head about that. So I'm not very consistent. I'm really going to try to be next year, but yeah, I would say this is a piece of like something that I always have on me, even if I don't use it. I like to refer back to it. So let me see like kind of what pages I can show, because you know it's all quite personal. But so I have some like really messy like pages like these two. This might not be messy to some people, but it is for me. And then I have like, I don't know, you know, stuff like, I'm covering the other page because not because it's full of personal information, but because I never filled it and I'm embarrassed. I never actually did that spread. This was for 2022. It was the year of, it was Arcanum 11, so that could be strength or justice. I did both. This year's card was the Hanged Man, which I haven't even, I'm such a disaster. I haven't even done anything on that. But I will do like an end of the year reflection video on that. But yeah, I'm so bad at journaling. I honestly am terrible at it. But it is something that I like. It is something that I, you know, whenever I fancy doing it, it really does. I like doing it. It fulfills me. Yeah, so here's the response. Okay, so it was response, review, release, but you could do like response, review, resolve, or something like that. What else? What other pages do I kind of like want to show off because they look cool? I don't know, like, again, I'm not very consistent. Like, I don't know, this page, for example, I think is kind of cool. I have like, I don't know, when I finish this, if I ever finish it, I would like to make a dedicated video to my tarot journal. I even made like a little booklet on Canva once for like a specific, yeah. So yeah, I'm not very consistent, as you can probably tell. But oh, this page was pretty cool actually. I like this page. It's just like a random day. It wasn't particularly significant, but I like went all out. This is like some more recent stuff, and yeah, this is the current page I'm on. So yeah, not very consistent habit, but I would like it to be a habit, so I'm counting it as paraphernalia. Okay, so finally we've reached the end of this video, and all I have is one piece of advice left to give. If you're getting into TarotTube, you want to start like making content, don't post hour-long videos. Just don't. No, that's not my advice. Seriously, tarot, you know, I feel like this is almost beyond cliche to say, but tarot is what you make it. Really, whatever you use tarot for, it is valid. Maybe my specific advice would be just never stop. Always have a student's attitude or perspective, approach to tarot. Never stop learning. I feel like some people hit a point where they feel like they're pretty confident on like the textbook meanings, and they go out into the world and they start reading tarot for other people, and that's fine. But I would say like never really, I think no one has really ever mastered tarot, even if you've been reading it for 20 years. I feel like there's still so much you can learn, and it's good to have the student's mindset, right? To want to learn, to never want to stop learning, because it's so enriching, and it just reveals so much about, like, you know, it gives you new perspectives. It broadens your horizons in terms of how you can read the cards. I feel like if you just stick to the textbook meanings, you can sometimes feel very restricted and constrained. You know, restricted in the sense of like how you can interpret a specific spread in relative to a specific question, for example. It might not make sense if you're just going by the textbook meaning. So if you really like strive to learn like as much as you can and never stop learning, you're gonna have just so much at your disposal. It's just more tools, more tools for your toolkit. You don't have to, that's another thing. Just because you have a lot of tarot knowledge, you don't have to rely on all of it all of the time, because that is really overwhelming and that does no one any favors. So what you do is, Tom Benjamin, again, this is like the third time I mentioned him in my video. You know, he should pay me. No, but yeah, I feel like you have it right. It's part of your toolbox, right? So everything you learn goes into your tarot toolbox, and you wouldn't use a tool you don't need for a problem. So like, say, you know, you have a pipe problem, right? Your pipes are leaking, whatever. You wouldn't use a hammer. You wouldn't use a tool that doesn't make sense for that kind of problem. You would obviously use the tool, you would use the corresponding tool for that situation, for that problem. And you're obviously not gonna bring out all your tools every time you have a problem. You're just gonna select the tool that you need specifically for that problem. But I feel it is good to have the more tools at your disposal, the better, because, you know, not in the sense, like I said, not so that you feel overwhelmed or like you have to use all of it, because you don't, but it will come in handy. You never know when it will come in handy. So the more knowledge, the better, I think. Maybe I'm just like a tarot nerd and that's just my personal approach. You obviously don't have to like take this approach to tarot, but I just believe it's so enriching. You know, learn tarot history, learn Kabbalah, learn even alchemy, numerology, astrology. Anything you can that will enrich and deepen your understanding of the tarot. Anything that could potentially come in handy one day if you read for clients, or even if you read for yourself, that will like contribute to your interpretations, that will richen that will deepen and enrich your interpretations of the tarot. You never know when that one little nugget of insight will come in handy when you're reading a card or a spread. You never know when it's going to be that piece of advice, that's the one that you needed to hear. That's the specific piece of knowledge that you needed to like, you needed that specific key to unlock that specific lock. And if you didn't have it, then you wouldn't have gotten the same result. Does that make sense? Anyway, wow, this is so long. Okay, I hope you grabbed some beverages while I was doing all that, saying all that, or even ate something. I will be shooting for more like short form media in the future. I really will be trying to anyway. But yeah, I feel like that deserved a lot of detail. I feel like this tag is great, and it deserves like, yeah, a lot of like, it really needed me to go into it as much as I could. So yeah, I don't really know if I have anyone to tag, because I feel like most of like the people I follow have been tagged and have done videos already. So this is a bit of a cop-out, but I would just say, if you're watching this video and you have a channel where you actively create content, I hereby tag you to do this tag if you haven't already, because I really can't like I really can't think of anyone specifically, because like I said, mostly everyone I follow who's been tagged has done it already. So yeah, if you want to do it, just go for it. And yeah, that's it. Hope you're doing well, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.